Hey friend, Roger Christopherson here again with another first listen review, and this is one that I didn't even know was coming out till earlier today. I don't know how I missed this one, but before I get to babbling too much, I just want to ask you to like, share, and subscribe to keep this music alive, because today we're going to be doing exactly what I say we do all the time. We're talking about bands that have been around a while, that we love, what they're up to nowadays. I do a lot of babbling. People comment what they think about whatever it is I'm babbling about. We all have a lot of fun, so if that's something you're into, well, you came to the right place, because we're about to get started on the babbling. And like I said, this isn't one that I knew about at all, and I'm talking about the Scorpions and their brand new mix, complete new remix, I guess is what they're calling it, of their debut album, Lonesome Crow. Like I said, I didn't even know this was coming. I just happened to catch it on. I was just looking through stuff, you know, like kind of try to keep my eye out, what's coming out, what I want to get. I'm like nuts about music, so I'm like constantly looking ahead, trying to figure out what I want and what I'm going to listen to. And I just kind of like, I don't know, it's just, music is like what I live for. So when I see something that's very interesting, I get very excited about it. Somehow I completely missed this. But this is a band I've been listening to since early on, like teen years, when I first started getting into this style of music. Michael Schenker was still is one of my favorite guitarists ever. This is as far as I remember right, this is his debut album, 16 years old when we recorded this thing. I was a big Scorpions fan. It was kind of funny. It was my sister that got me into the Scorpions. I was like really into the metal scene and guitar and all that. She was more into Duran Duran and all that type of stuff for whatever reason, but somehow I swayed her to like the style of music that I liked. I think it's when I took her to see Def Leppard, and then she started hanging Def Leppard posters up on her wall and Motley Crue posters up on her wall, and took the Duran Duran ones down. It's funny now, as I actually like Duran Duran nowadays, but anyway, the sibling rivalry aside, she got into the Scorpions before I did, and I used to sneak her tapes out and copy them, and that's kind of how I found the Scorpions. Kind of a funny little story, I think. But anyway, the thing is, I got into like MSG and all that stuff before I even heard this album the first time. And the funny thing is, when I heard this album the very first time, I didn't like it at all. It was not. I mean, if you're familiar with the Scorpions at all, this album is nothing like anything they did. Maybe the second album, what, Fly to the Rainbow or whatever that one's called. I can't even think of what it's called now, but this is similar, but this one's like way different than anything I was expecting. I mean, a couple of the first albums I got were like, Blackout and like Love Drive, Savage Amusement. Like that was the era. I remember Worldwide Live was one that I snuck from her and I taped. So those are the first things I heard. Really thought it was cool. Went back and listened to this, and it's hard to explain because I don't really know what style of music you would classify this as. So if you've never heard this album, like if you've been a Scorpions fan, it's just one you've never gone back and listened to, it's different. It's really jammy. I mean, Michael just steals the show. Klaus sounds a lot different. Still has a great voice, but the style of music is just, I don't know, it's almost like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like jammy. It's kind of got a hippie type feel to it a little bit. I mean, we kind of relate things to like what music we've heard before, and it's kind of, I don't know, I get it, like Jefferson Starship's one of those bands comes to mind, like the jammy style of Jefferson, or Airplane, I should say. But even that isn't really close. But it's like that with just freestyle jamming type stuff going on. It's very hard to explain, obviously, because I'm struggling here to do it. But I didn't like it at all. That's what I was getting to. Really never really went back and listened to this album much. But I saw it was coming out. I was like, you know what? The one thing I remember not really liking about it was the mix was horrible. It was like really muddy and spacey sounding. And that's just one of the things I didn't like about it. So I see that this has been completely remixed from the archive of the producer. He had the master tapes. His name is Connie Plank, and it's been remixed by Martin Buff. And it's their 60th anniversary. And So it really intrigued me. I mean, I've heard it before, so I knew what to expect as far as the songs go. But I was really intrigued to hear what this new remix, not just remaster, this is a completely remix, would sound like. And, you know, as far as the band members go, we have Klaus as the vocals. He's been with them since their very first album. He was not the original singer, but original album, he was the singer. Of course, Rudolph, the only original member in the band at this point, as far as the formation of it, but it's been Rudolph and Klaus since day one as far as the albums go. Michael, of course, which I already mentioned. Lothar Heimberg on bass guitar, and Wolfgang Zioni, I don't even know how you pronounce that one, on drums. I'm really noted for like mangling names, so I can't, you know, let anybody down. But very short as far as album tracks, only 7 songs. However, title track, the very last one here, is 13 minutes long, so that one really gets jammy. But it's really strange how it starts out, because the first song on here, it's just so different. And when Klaus finally comes in and starts singing, it's not even singing, it's kind of like talking, and then kind of develops into singing a little bit. The structure of the song is very strange. All the songs are kind of like that. There's really no solid structure. There's very freestyle feeling songs. I know I've seen interviews with Michael where he says he pretty much wrote the whole thing, although all the songs are credited to the Scorpions as a band. But Michael has stated many times that he wrote the majority of the stuff. It was him and Klaus. You know, Klaus wrote obviously the lyrics and melody, I would guess, but I know that's what he says anyway. And as far as like the songs themselves, they're very not rock. They're not metal. Like I said, there's freestyle jam, a lot of clean guitar in the rhythms. It's like very, very clean guitar, a lot of it. Very strummy, like jammy type stuff. I know I've said that like 100 times, but I'm like really struggling to describe what this is. However, the remix is really good. I like heard it in a completely new light. Probably helped that I already heard it before and knew what to expect. But going into this and hoping for something a little bit better, I got it. This is one of those very few times where the remix is better than the original. I mean, obviously, honestly, it just couldn't get much worse. The original, just in my opinion, wasn't really all that great. This actually was an interesting listen. I really enjoyed listening to Michael just play, realizing how young he was at this point in time. I'm trying to listen to hear if he had his sound and style back then. You could hear that it was there, and really in the early stages of the development to, you know, what it turned into. The licks were a little bit more generic. I don't want to say that as an insult or anything, but he was very young. You can still hear he was learning a style, but still very good, like very fluid playing. Like it wasn't like, you know, choppy or like sloppy. He was actually very precise, very smooth, very fluid with his playing on this. And there's a lot of leads on these songs. There's a lot of Michael on this. So if you're a Michael fan and you want to hear like early Michael jamming, that's really what this album is for me. Klaus, when he actually sings in some of these songs, which is the most of the rest of them, although there's not a whole lot of singing in these songs overall, quite honestly, but he sounds like his range is there. He doesn't do the super high, you know, stuff that he did in the early 80s and all that, but he's got a very good range. You can hear that. And it's funny because my favorite like era of the band, actually even after getting into them, you know, in the mid 80s there, I actually like the mid to late 70s stuff with Uli in it a lot. So that's those years there, some of my favorites. Not to take anything away from them, but I think they were just more original and experimental, and even though they were trying to find their sound back then, I think they had a really cool sound. They're heavier, even though they became more of a hair metal. I mean, they did, if we're being honest. Late 80s through the 90s, and even continued on with that sound probably the rest of their career, actually. this is where they're really heavy, like not this album in particular, but right after this album in the 70s. So that's kind of my favorite stuff. So they've had several different stages in their sound. This is one that was completely different from anything else, I think. And it was just fun to listen to again. All the instrumentation, everything sounds like really clear. You can hear and for me, the 70s style drumming and the sound that they had back in the 70s, I really like that sound. I didn't like the really super compressed stuff that they did in the 80s. And nowadays, they use so many samples in production, I don't know what's real and not real anymore. So just the sound of like real drums in the 70s and the way they're produced, I really enjoyed. And this has that sound. The bass comes through really good. And I have to give props to the guy playing bass on this one, who I don't know what else he played on, but Lothar actually does a very good job playing on this. And drumming was good, obviously. I didn't say much about the drumming itself, but it all actually felt really more cohesive with a better mix. I know the whole album was made in like 7 days, and I didn't know until recently that it was also like the soundtrack to a movie, an anti-drug movie, I guess, was called Das Cult Paradise. Didn't know that this was actually the soundtrack to that, which is interesting. And it's kind of got a dark sound to it. It's I don't know, it's really psychedelic sounding too. I guess psychedelic's another good way to describe this. Psychedelic jam, dark psychedelic jam. I don't know, maybe that's a new style of music I just came up with there from this, I don't know. But anyway, obviously I'm not going through all the tracks at this point because this video is already getting kind of long, but very interesting. If you're a Scorpions fan and you've never heard this might be the way to start. Just forget about the original mix. Go back and listen to that later on if you want. But this one, much better, actually. I'm very happy with how this sounded. And I probably might actually listen to this again. I was probably never ever going to listen to this album again if it wasn't for this. This one, actually, I enjoyed. I really liked listening to it. So it's weird how that happens sometimes. But anyway, I don't know what's going on with Scorpions nowadays, if they're really done, if they're going to continue on. You never know with these bands and their farewells. It just seems like to go on forever. But I'm okay with that. Love the Scorpions. I just reviewed their last live album. I really enjoyed that too. So I don't know. It's just another one, and I can add into my collection, and I actually like this one now. So until they decide to do something else and release something new, I'm going to stick this one in and probably give it a few more spins. And until then, we'll see you.